Hey guys, MCU Collector here with the next video in the Hasbro Marvel Legends series, Venom Wave 2, the Venompool Build-A-Figure. This is Morbius, the living vampire. So this is the first figure in the wave with the Build-A-Figure piece because only 5 figures to build the Build-A-Figure. So that is kind of an awesome trend because the movie Venom figure did not come with a Build-A-Figure piece. So Morbius is the first one, so we'll do a comparison with the previously released Absorbing Man Build-A-Figure Wave Morbius. So let's check out the package. So typical white box for the Venom Wave. We actually get a different logo here in the front, though. It does say Morbius, the living vampire. We get some awesome side artwork there. This would have tied in semi, right? Because the Morbius movie was supposed to have come out this year in July, but obviously it was delayed due to the pandemic, unfortunately, and I am actually very excited to see that movie. It does look very good and interesting. Back of the package, we have the 5 figures for the Venompool Build-A-Figure, a product shot of Morbius himself, and the bio reads, Michael Morbius, the living vampire, prowls the night, tortured by his life-sustaining thirst. And that is, of course, his thirst for blood, because he is a damn vampire after all. So let's open him up. Okay, and here is the Morbius figure out of the package, and he's an okay one, but there's some weird things going on with the shoulders and the arms, and we'll talk about that both in the articulation and as we take a closer look. But first thing I want to talk about is the Build-A-Figure, the Venompool. Holy shit! This figure is going to be huge because this is just the arm, and look how big this damn thing is. It's crazy. And we get interchangeable hands, so 5 figures to build the Build-A-Figure, and he comes with interchangeable hands. That's a trend that I would really get behind if Hasbro were to do this. I'm sure this is going to be a one-time thing, but if that ends up being the case, I would not mind that at all. But look at that little ass peg for this big ass hand. What the hell? I forgot, there was another figure that was like that. Was it the Red Hulk that was like that too? There was another one with tiny pegs and it bothered me and they popped out very easily. This thing's going to do the same. But we're going to stick all these Build-A-Figure pieces off to the side and we'll take a closer look at Morbius. So let's get in close and see what he's all about. Okay, so here is an up-close look at Morbius. So the head sculpt is the big highlight of the figure. It is comic accurate, yes, to the Midnight Suns, that 90s, that early 90s comic run, the Morbius title. The head sculpt looks really good. If anything, my only complaint would be the inside of the mouth. Usually how they have some open jaws, they actually have a little bit of depth into the mouth. It's pretty shallow, really not big of a deal. It's just a minor nitpick that I would say there, but it looks really good. The white plastic mold of the head sculpt, the bright red eyes, the little bit of paint in his mouth, it all looks really, really good. If anything, maybe a little too much gum showing right there because it looks like that tooth is just kind of floating there, that other fang, but the head sculpt does look really, really good, and he's got that flared out hair, blown out hair, I think is what Dwight Stahl had called it, and it's all spiky and stuff in the back, so that looks really good. As far as the sculpt, looking at it, it's just weird. These shoulders are just weird because this is I believe these arms get used with the Spider-Man 2099 body mold. I could be wrong on that, but it's like the same ones from the Spider-Man Retro. The shoulders themselves are not, but the arms are. And then he has the Spider UK body mold, because I could always tell by these ankles. The legs are. The torso is a whole new piece that's going to be specific to him. It's a new sculpt, so it's something that he wore in the comics. Somebody else had it, so I doubt that it gets used again, but I would imagine we probably get another Morbius. Maybe when the movie comes out, you know, they might take advantage of it now, or like a Midnight Suns box set or something like that. So it's just weird the way the torso is. It's very thin, and then these shoulders, the way they go in there, there's a lot of gappage in there, and there's all kinds of movement as if there were a butterfly joint, but there is no butterfly joint, so it just sits in there really, really weird. So you could see it kind of wobble back and forth. So it's kind of weird, and this one makes some weird ratcheting noise. I don't know what's going on with it there, but it is what it is. But the sculpt of it does look nice. Very comic accurate again. You get a little bit of paint, silver there for the button. Tiny bit of silver paint for that zipper there. But then the rest is done in this like indigo color. And then we get this cape that's like a bright pink color. And it's pretty cheap looking. And it just ports on into the back of the figure like so. So you can kind of move it around a little bit if you want to do something to where it's kind of flowing in the wind. You can kind of adjust it like that. But that's really it. Now let's zoom out for his articulation. Okay, so to keep this from kind of flying around and stuff and falling off, because it is very shallow peg, so chances are it would fall off if I were doing something. So to look at his articulation, the head is on a ball joint and hinge, so he can look up that much. So if you wanted to get into some type of flight pose, you could. To get him to look down, he can look all the way down, which is great. You get some pivot going on in there, and then of course a full rotation. The shoulders go out that high up. You do get a full rotation in there. Of course, you have upper bicep swivel. You get a double jointed elbow, which gives you that much bend, as you can see there. The wrists swivel and they do hinge like so. We have an ab crunch here, so you can crunch forward that much. This black belt piece is a floating piece. You can kind of move it down a little bit, but not a whole lot. So it does kind of hinder that ab crunch a little bit to where he's only going to crunch forward that much. Back, he's hardly going back at all. And then be careful on yours. I had to kind of crack mine on the waist swivel, but he does have that waist swivel. Legs go out that far apart. He can kick forward that high there. Doesn't really go back. We have an upper thigh cut there. You get a double jointed knee, which gives you that much bend, so not a whole lot of bend at the knee. So that's actually a little disappointing, because I'd like to get that leg all the way up, but you just can't. And then you have that calf swivel right in the middle of the calf, so when you turn it, it really breaks up that sculpt and looks really, really weird. Foot hinges all the way down, hinges up a little bit. You have ankle pivot and peg holes at the bottom of the feet. So decent articulation, but he's a little lacking. So if you try and get him into some dynamic poses, it's definitely a little bit more difficult. So for the real amateurs like me, it's really, really difficult. Okay, for the side-by-side comparison, here is the Absorbing Man Build-A-Figure Wave Morbius. I actually really like this one a lot more than this new one. This one, the torso is kind of weird. You know, the legs aren't so bad. It's just the torso is weird with those shoulders. And I really actually like this look a lot more. You know, the white flesh tone, we actually get a wash over it to give it some texture. So I just prefer that one. But what I will do is do a little bit of head swap, because I actually really like this head sculpt a lot more than this one. And I think that one's actually still really good. So we're going to pop that head off and let's see if it fits. I'm going to keep these arms up because I've had these arms up for years. I tried moving this one and I was able to get it in, but this one I couldn't, and I'm scared I'm going to break it, so we're not even going to try it. Okay, so this is going to be weird. So the collar piece in the hair, that's not really going to work. And then the skin tones aren't really going to match because we don't get the wash. On the new one, it's just all white. So that won't work there, but this one might. And it sits a little high, but that could work, right? It has more of a punk look to him when I see it like that. So that could work, but obviously I still prefer the original a lot more. So now let's see some other comparisons. Okay, and here's side-by-side comparison with the Midnight Suns members Blade and Ghost Rider, and they look pretty good together, but looking at them, man, we really need a new Blade because that figure sucks. It just stands all funky and weird because of how the legs are. So it would be nice to get a new Blade figure. And then looking at this, I'm really looking at the hips, how much wider than the torso they are. So I think that's just my biggest problem with this figure, is the torso is just too narrow and thin, right? It should be a little bit bigger, and I definitely think this figure would be better. But there they are side by side. Okay, so Morbius and Spider-Man side by side. Morbius is definitely a little bit taller. They should actually be about the same height, so that's just kind of one thing that's a little bit funky. But like even here, you know how Spider-Man's got a little bit of build to him, so when you have a super thin torso, to me it just looks kind of funky. There is just no shape to him whatsoever, so I really would have preferred if that torso piece was just a little bit wider and a little bit bulkier. Really would have set it off. Okay, so my final thoughts on the Morbius figure. If I wasn't a completist and I wasn't building the Venompool, I think he would definitely be an easy pass. I just like the Absorbing Man Build-A-Figure Wave 1 a lot more than this one. The cape, you know, is accurate as it is. I mean, it was more, the way it seemed drawn was kind of more like, you know, kind of spaced out a little bit more with one side of a cape and another cape. The tattered up look is good, but it's just a very bright pinkish color, and you know, I think a wash on there would have gone a long way for it. So it's just okay, and it just barely hangs on there, so that's just another thing that's kind of tough. You know, maybe if they did something where it went around his neck, because you know he has that black collar piece, if they just kind of tied it in with the collar, maybe that would have made a big difference. But the figure's okay. The head sculpt is great, but I just think it's okay. You guys let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts are on Morbius. If you guys liked the video, please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and as always, thank you for watching.